I let my adult stepdaughter join our honeymoon, hoping to start fresh. Instead, I ended up in the ER after a dangerous prank. Here's how it all unfolded. I'm 44, recently married to Jeff, 48, my boyfriend of 4 years. Jeff has an 18-year-old daughter, Addison, from his previous marriage. From the start, Addison never liked me. I don't know why, but she always made it clear. Jeff and I were introduced by mutual friends. Both of us had been single for a long time. My previous marriage ended amicably. My ex and I just realized we'd fallen out of love. No drama, no lingering ties. Jeff's story, however, was different. His wife tragically passed away when Addison was just 7. Jeff had dated casually after his wife's passing, but never anything serious, until me. Our friends' matchmaking turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to us. Jeff and I connected deeply and had a healthy, supportive relationship. The only challenge? Addison. It wasn't that I had a problem with her, it was the other way around. She constantly made me feel like I wasn't good enough for her father. Her sharp looks, snide remarks, and dismissive attitude made every interaction tense. When I brought this up to Jeff early in our relationship, he admitted this was her pattern with his previous girlfriends. It had even led to breakups, as he always prioritized his daughter over his relationships. He was frustrated but felt helpless. Addison, grieving her mother and navigating adolescence, clung tightly to her father. I understood her pain. Losing a parent at such a young age is unimaginable. So, I decided to give her grace, ignoring her rude behavior. She was 14 when I entered her life, and I chalked it up to teenage angst. I figured she'd grow out of it. Over time, things improved slightly. Last year, Addison went off to college. By then, her attitude toward me had softened. She stopped making cutting remarks, and we reached an unspoken truce. Perhaps she realized I wasn't going anywhere. Jeff proposed after Addison left for college, and we had a small, intimate wedding. To my surprise, Addison was on her best behavior. I expected resentment but saw none. For the first time, I thought we might finally be building a relationship. Her attitude at the wedding gave me hope. When she asked to join us on our honeymoon, I hesitated but eventually agreed. I discussed it with Jeff, and we decided to let her come. The trip was to Egypt, a dream destination for us and the setting of one of our favorite novels. Addison, a history major, expressed genuine interest in the trip. Her enthusiasm made it seem like an opportunity to bond. I convinced myself this could be the beginning of a new chapter for us. Little did I know, I was walking into a trap. The moment we agreed to let her join us, it felt like a fresh chapter waiting to be written. She had asked to come along 3 weeks before our departure, and after a week of back-and-forth deliberation, we finally decided to say yes. I was the one who broke the news to her, and her face lit up with gratitude. It was heartwarming. Secretly, I was looking forward to this trip as an opportunity to bridge the gap between us. I envisioned deep conversations, clearing the air from past misunderstandings, and creating memories that would bind us closer. After all, Jeff and I were in this for the long haul, and I wanted harmony with his daughter. Addison, still in college, had already missed some classes to attend our wedding. Now, with the honeymoon on the horizon, she was taking even more time off, determined not to let school obligations hold her back. The day she returned home for the trip, she arrived just 3 hours before our scheduled departure. Chaos filled the house. Luggage checks, last-minute errands, and the palpable anticipation of travel meant we barely exchanged more than a few hurried words. No time for heartfelt talks, just a collective focus on making the flight. The journey to Egypt began without a hitch. The flight was smooth, and the transition from the bustling airport to our hotel seemed almost too perfect. Exhaustion was our only companion by the time we reached our destination. Everyone needed rest, especially Addison, who had been on the go all day. We decided to reconvene in the evening and settled into our rooms, Jeff and I in one, Addison on a different floor. It felt like a balanced arrangement, allowing us privacy while still including her. An hour into my nap, my phone buzzed. Addison was calling. She wanted to grab lunch, mentioning she hadn't eaten much on the flight. Her request wasn't unusual, so I agreed. She invited me to her room, saying she had already ordered something special for us. Her thoughtfulness caught me off guard, and I appreciated the gesture. When the food arrived, she introduced it as a traditional Egyptian dessert she had researched online. Its appearance was unconventional. A mix of odd textures and unfamiliar aromas made me hesitate. But not wanting to offend her, I took a bite. That decision was catastrophic. The next thing I remember was gasping for air, my throat tightening, and panic setting in. My allergy to peanuts, something I hadn't thought of in the moment, turned this meal into a life-threatening situation. The dessert was laced with peanut butter, deliberately masked by vanilla ice cream and dates. Addison's intricate instructions to the kitchen had ensured I wouldn't detect it by smell or taste. My body's reaction was instant and severe. I managed to shout for Addison to grab my EpiPen from our room, clinging to the hope that she'd act quickly. Thankfully, she did. Realizing the gravity of the situation, she called the receptionist for an ambulance and alerted Jeff about the emergency. The rest was a blur of sirens, sterile hospital rooms, and a desperate fight to breathe. 3 days have passed since that harrowing experience. While I've been recovering, Jeff and I made a unanimous decision: Addison was sent home. Her actions were reckless, and though I'm still processing it all, the memory of her calculated move with the dessert lingers. Jeff, unaware of the full story until I recounted it later, had only heard fragments from the hotel staff. Those fragments, combined with my account, painted a picture that's hard to shake off. But the words spilled out anyway. Addison's track record wasn't exactly reassuring, and I couldn't just stand by and let her manipulate Jeff without confronting the truth. I reminded him how terrified I was in the hospital, how my throat had closed up and every breath felt like a battle for survival. That wasn't just a prank, Addison, I said, locking eyes with her. It was reckless, cruel, and could have killed me. She flinched, but her expression hardened just as quickly. It was a mistake, she snapped, her voice rising. I didn't mean for it to go that far. I said I was sorry. Sorry doesn't undo the damage, I replied, my tone firm but measured. And sorry certainly doesn't change the fact that you've been ignoring every chance to take accountability. Jeff stood silent, torn between his daughter and me. I could see the internal struggle on his face, the weight of a father's love battling with the knowledge of what she had done. Addison, sensing his hesitation, pressed harder. Dad, you're all I have. Please don't cut me off. I'll do better, I promise. But I need your help. College is exhausting, and I can't make it on my own. Her voice cracked on the last word, but I didn't buy it. Her pattern of behavior had always been the same: push boundaries, plead ignorance, then beg for forgiveness when things spiraled out of control. I wasn't going to let her manipulate him again. Addison, I said, stepping between her and Jeff, this isn't about money. It's about trust. You violated that when you put my life at risk. You need to prove you can take responsibility before you ask for anything else. Her face darkened with frustration. Why are you trying to turn him against me? She accused, her voice trembling with anger. You've already ruined everything. No, Addison, Jeff finally said, his voice heavy with emotion. You did this to yourself. I love you, but love doesn't mean shielding you from the consequences of your actions. It's time you learned that. For the first time, Addison looked genuinely stunned. She opened her mouth to argue but seemed to realize it was futile. Without another word, she stormed off to her room, slamming the door behind her. I turned to Jeff, exhausted but relieved. Thank you, I said softly, for standing your ground. He nodded, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and resolve. It's not easy, he admitted. But it's what she needs. As the house grew quiet, I finally allowed myself to exhale. The battle wasn't over, but for the first time, I felt like we were taking a step in the right direction. Out loud, the words burned with tension and exhaustion, each line weaving through a turbulent web of frustration and resolution. Addison's actions had forced a choice neither Jeff nor I ever wanted to make. The night of her latest outburst played vividly in my mind. She dismissed her previous apology like it was dust on a shelf, leaving me questioning its sincerity. When I broached the subject of her prank and how it had sent me to the ER, her response chilled me to the bone. If I'd really meant to harm you, she spat, eyes alight with venom, I wouldn't have called the hotel or an ambulance. I'd have let you suffer. The icy precision of her words sent a shiver down my spine. It was a glimpse of something almost sinister. I laid it bare. Her disregard for others, her recklessness, these weren't traits of someone we could trust. You've abused the trust your father placed in you, I told her, my voice trembling with emotion. I've tried for years to be kind, to give you chances. But this? This is beyond anything I could overlook. The argument erupted like a wildfire. She got in my face, her anger palpable. Then, she pushed me. It wasn't a violent shove, but enough to force me back, teetering on the edge of balance. That's when Jeff stepped in, his voice sharp and resolute. "Enough," he said, a finality in his tone that left no room for negotiation. "You're leaving." Addison's face contorted in rage as she accused him of choosing me over her, of abandoning her. Jeff stood firm. "This isn't about sides. It's about doing the right thing." Her accusations grew louder, more venomous, but Jeff held his ground. Eventually, she stormed out, bags in hand, her departure marked by fury rather than sorrow. Hours later, Jeff and I sat in the quiet aftermath, unpacking not just our bags but the emotional weight of everything that had unfolded. "She's just a teenager," I said, my voice heavy with conflicted emotion. "But this isn't something we can allow to continue." Jeff nodded. We both knew that trust, once shattered, isn't easily repaired. Days passed, and then came the email. Addison threatened to drop out of college if Jeff didn't resume giving her an allowance. The demand was veiled as desperation, but it felt like manipulation. Jeff was torn. "I don't want to ruin her life," he admitted, his face etched with worry. We discussed it late into the night. "She has two options," I finally said. "She can stay in college, grow up, and take responsibility. Or she can drop out and face the consequences on her own. Either way, she needs to learn." Jeff's response to her was calm, direct, and firm. No more allowances. No financial support if she dropped out. At 18, Addison needed to start acting like an adult. We hit send and braced for the fallout. The reply came at midnight. Addison wrote that she would stay in college and get a part-time job, though not without guilt-laden jabs at Jeff. "I never thought my own father would abandon me," she wrote, her words dripping with manipulative undertones. Jeff and I sighed in relief. It worked. Addison was staying in college, and for now, that was enough. As we set aside the stress, I reminded myself of one thing: we deserve peace. The honeymoon phase wasn't meant for battles like this. And for the first time in days, we allowed ourselves to breathe.